Hi, everybody, and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode, we're doing a top 10. Topic of the top 10 female wrestlers for 2022. If you've been following along, last top 10 we did the top 10 male wrestlers. We've done a couple other top 10s on the basically best of the year vibe, so we're continuing on with that. Let's jump right into it. Number 10, Ronda Rousey. Ronda is a very controversial addition to this list, and I kind of toyed with keeping her off here. And then I really thought about this. These lists are kind of partially kayfabe, partially my opinion, so it's kind of a mix between like a figure skating judge where you're judging the art and what they really do. So I can't say that Ronda, if we go on the fact of how she's been portrayed and where she's been on the card, I can't exclude her from this list. Now, stylistically, will I say that Ronda Rousey has regressed? It feels like she's no longer trying to be the best wrestler or trying to be the best wrestler she can. I don't know if she's maybe lost that spark to her, but it does feel like she's regressed in her talent, her ring talent. And it's kind of sad because before Ronda actually got into wrestling, I felt like she was one of the women that really could spark women's wrestling, and I thought she had one of the best potentials, especially where she came from, as she was already a major star coming into it. Having the judo background, having the MMA background, I thought that she would catch on, and she does. Admittedly, she has. She's been very good. It just kind of does really feel like either she's not listening to anybody and not doing what the coaches are telling her, or she's not being coached at all, or she thinks what she's doing is what she needs to do. I don't know, but she has been very successful. For that reason, she does make our list at number 10. Now, number 9, a woman that I argued for most of the year should be a real champion, or not most of the year, for at least a couple months, not an interim champion, Toni Storm. Toni, again, much like I said with Jon Moxley, she was asked to step up into a bad situation and kind of carry the ball in AEW and keep the women's division going. The reason I would rank Toni this low on the list, the number 9, is I feel a lot of the AEW women's division has a lot of a stop-start vibe to it, where for a couple months they'll be totally disappeared off our airwaves, and then all of a sudden, here they are in the main event picture, and then they disappear again. It's kind of frustrating, and I know it's not just the women's division, it happens in the men's division too, but when you look at a company, in my opinion, one of their most glaring weaknesses is the women's division, how it's pushed. When you have someone that's a star like Toni Storm here, it feels like you should maybe more prominently feature them. So again, this is not a knock on Toni Storm or her talent. It's just the way that AEW has featured her. If they would have featured her more prominently through the entire year, she probably would have been much higher on the list. But for that reason, she's our number 9. Now, our number 8. This is a woman that in most years would be in consideration for the number 1 spot, which should tell you just how good the year in women's wrestling this has been. Charlotte Flair. Again, Charlotte has missed some time during the year. A lot of these women have, and a lot of men have. It's not a knock on her for that. I also kind of feel like Charlotte's taken a little bit of a backseat this year. She stepped a little bit away out of the spotlight, let other women build up and become into the spotlight. And I think it's not only going to help the WWE women's division, it's going to help women's wrestling altogether. But when we see Charlotte coming back to go after that top spot again, now we have a serious contender, someone that you think might be able to beat her, or someone that you know can beat her. And it gives us better matches, and it gives us more variety. There was a long time where it felt like Charlotte was getting forced down her throat, kind of the same with Roman Reigns. Not saying that they're not immensely talented and they shouldn't be at the top of their divisions, but it just felt like more of the same over and over again. Charlotte is proof of that old adage that how can you miss me if I don't go away? And with her taking time off this year, it's really shown we do miss her when she's gone, because it's not been the same in the time she's not been there, and in the time she was there. She's Charlotte Flair, one of the best wrestlers they have, arguably already has set herself in probably the top 10 of women's wrestlers of all time. You could make a strong argument for her being towards the top of that list. Now, going from that, our number 7, Thunder Rosa. Thunder Rosa, to me, had a more interesting build to the championship than she did after she won the championship, and that's the AEW Women's Championship. Kind of the same as Hangman Adam Page. Adam Page had a similar trajectory where his build up to winning the world title really felt special, but then when he got it, it was almost like they booked and they had a plan up until the point she won, and then after she won, they had nothing to do. They had no idea what to do with her. She was constantly made to feel lesser than as champion than, like, let's say Britt Baker or Jade Cargill and other women on the show, which through no fault of her own. I mean, Thunder Rosa is a fantastic wrestler, and I feel like I'm talking a lot of negative here at the back end, but I feel like there's some flaws in the way that some of these women were pushed and some of the way they've been treated, and I want to point that out, and I want to make a point that, I do love all the women on this list. I think are fantastic. I really hope at some point when she comes back from her injury, we get a lengthy Thunder Rosa championship run that the fans could get behind, because the fans were totally behind her, and somehow she lost it. They lost that spark, they lost that importance, they lost that feel of interest in that, and we ended up at the point where if she didn't have to give up the title for injury, they probably would have had to take it off her because the fans were already kind of turning their backs on her. But with all that said, I do think she had a fantastic year, even with that, even with the injuries. I think she's a fantastic wrestler. Now, coming from that, our number 6. This is a woman that really took her stock and blew up this year. If you would have told me 3 years ago, 2 years ago even, that Mandy Rose would be in the top 10 of women's wrestlers in the world on a list that I made, I would either have said you're nuts, or every other wrestler that year was injured. Mandy has carved herself a niche in NXT and reinvented herself in a way it's so impressive. The only thing I could really compare it to, and it's different but similar, is Trish Stratus. When Trish initially came in, she wasn't the greatest wrestler in the world, but she worked hard at it, and she kept working until she became one of the greatest women wrestlers of all time. Mandy may have taken a longer route to get there, but she's there. She's one of the top women's wrestlers in WWE and one of the top wrestlers in WWE. It says a lot that she's been asked to carry that NXT Women's Championship the way she does, and Toxic Attraction is such a big part of that show. It says a lot about who she is and how important she is to the company. I really enjoy it, and I think Mandy, even if you asked her, I think she would say the same, that this was her breakout year. For me, I really do think she stepped it up in a way that a lot of people don't when given this opportunity, and for that, I gotta say, not only is she a top 10 wrestler this year, but she's probably one of the 10 wrestlers I'm most excited to see what happens in 2023 with, because at some point, Toxic Attraction is gonna have to go up to the main roster, and can she bring that momentum with her? Can they carry that on SmackDown, on Monday Night Raw? What happens when Toxic Attraction breaks up? Can she carry that without having her team with her? Is she able to carry that on her own? And that's an interesting story, and I hope we get to see that soon. Hopefully at the Royal Rumble time, we'll see her as one of the call-ups, if not after, right after WrestleMania like they usually do. But I think she's fantastic, and she definitely deserves to be on this list. Our number 5, Jordynne Grace. Jordynne Grace, to me, is so special and so gifted and so talented, because not only does she not look like everybody else or wrestle like everybody else, she carries herself in a way that reminds you of, like, basically what she said to have been. A female Scott Steiner or a female Goldberg or a female Samoa Joe would be a great comparison. And I'm not comparing them to her just because, oh, here's your male counterpart. No, I don't feel that even through the history of wrestling, even when we look at someone like a Chyna, I don't feel we've ever had a Jordynne Grace character in women's wrestling. I don't think we've had someone that's been that talented, that gifted, and with that kind of a build. And it's kind of awesome seeing it, because you're starting to see the different kinds of women and different looks, and not everybody has to look and wrestle a certain way. We're starting to see women like Jordan that are breaking out and becoming big stars on their own and having fantastic careers. And in my opinion, she's been one of the top wrestlers in what I would consider the best company for women's wrestling, at least in America. If you noticed, and there's this little spoiler, there's no Joshi women on here because I don't get to watch a lot of Joshi wrestling, so I don't want to include somebody I can't really speak of, that I haven't seen that often with my own eyes. So to me, Impact Wrestling is the best North American women's company as far as wrestling wise, and she's proven herself to be one of their top stars, if not the top woman in that company. I think she's absolutely fantastic, and I love what she brings to the table, and it's just another thing, much like Mandy Rose, much like everybody on this list. I'm excited to see what 2023 brings for her, because I think she's only going to get better and better and build herself more. Now, coming from that, our number 4. We've already talked about a lot of people improving their standings in 2022. This woman probably had the biggest glow up all year, and no, I'm not talking about Naomi. Jamie Hayter. Jamie Hayter was a grassroots, fan-driven build. She's brought in to basically be the heater for Britt Baker, be her Diesel, or whatever you want to say the comparison would be, China for DX. And she absolutely not only blew us away at that role when she was given the opportunity to do anything on her own, she also blew us away with that. I mean, everything about Jamie Hayter and her build and her rise to the top has been absolutely perfect. I will complain a lot, and you've already heard me complain about AEW and how they book their women's division, but the one thing I will say that they get right is when the fans back somebody, Jamie Hayter, the Acclaimed, Wardlow before that, they're not afraid to pull the trigger and give that person a shot. It's really refreshing to see that, and it's something that, watching wrestling for a long time, and I know AEW's been around a couple years, but being like a fan of watching WWE, you would see guys and women that the fans would get behind, and they might push them to a certain degree, but they always found a way to pull the rug out under them and not give the fans exactly what they wanted. I think it's great that they decided to go with what the fans wanted. Not only did she have a fantastic year, but she was also rewarded with becoming the women's champion, and they took the interim away from her when she grabbed it, and then retroactively took the interim away from Toni Storm as well. Again, much like I've said with the other people before her, I'm so excited to see what 2023 holds. What's going to happen with her and Britt Baker? Is there going to be a split? When is the split going to happen? I think the more interesting story is they don't split. Or if they do, they split amicably. Because I don't think the old tired and true, oh, the lackey is now the star. I don't think you want to go that route here. I think you leave these two. You don't want to split that fan base, because the people that are loving Jamie Hayter are the same people that love Britt Baker. So I don't know if you want to split that just yet, or you want to turn one on the other. I know they're eventually going to do it, but I hope maybe they can find a different way to find a different story with this kind of an act. Now, going from that, our number 3, the man, Becky Lynch. I mean, who doesn't love Becky Lynch? Until Becky retires, she's probably going to be in consideration to be the top women's wrestler in the world any year she does this. In my opinion, she was just barely beaten out by the 2 women ahead of her. Becky, to me, much like I said with Jamie Hayter, was someone they absolutely got right and got behind the grassroots following, and then she was given a ball, and when she was given the ball, she absolutely ran with it. Becky Lynch would be the equivalent of having a Kobe Bryant or a Michael Jordan on your bench, and then they get into a game and they go crazy, kind of like Jeremy Lin did if you're a basketball fan, and then you're like, okay, so let's put you in the starting lineup, and then they reward you by not only being an all-star, but ending up being one of the all-time greats. Much like I've said on this list already with Charlotte Flair, Becky has put enough of her career behind her now and has enough accolades and enough great matches and great storylines that she has to be on the short list for greatest women of all time. I would put her in the top 5 easily, maybe, or top 10 easily, maybe the top 5. I mean, if you go behind her and Charlotte and Bayley and Sasha, what all 4 of them have done, they really revolutionized what women's wrestling, at least in the WWE, could be. And it's not a knock on other promotions like Impact or TNA or even AEW, but when we talk about pro wrestling in the United States, which is mostly what we talk about here on these top 10s, 90% of the general public only knows what WWE is. They don't even know that there's an AEW out there. They might not watch WWE, but they know the name. They've seen Becky Lynch on TV shows promoting it. She's been on whatever talk show they watch, or she's made other appearances just like that. So for her to be what is one of the flag bearers in WWE, her and Roman, I would say, are two of the flag bearers there. It really says something about just how special she is. And I don't know that we're going to fully respect everything she's done until her career's over. Kind of like a Shawn Michaels in a way. Before the back injury, and I was a fan in the era, a lot of fans didn't talk about Shawn Michaels being one of the greats of all time. It wasn't till we were missing Shawn Michaels for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the road that we started going, that Shawn Michaels was really awesome. And it's kind of like we felt complacent with it. I feel like we've got a little bit with that with Becky Lynch, but she's just an amazing talent. And I think, like I said, when the stories are all done and written, she's going to have an argument to be the greatest women's wrestler of all time. Obviously, all 4 of the 4 horsewomen are going to be fighting out for that. I believe they're all driven to be the number 1, and I can't see a world where all 4 of them don't continue to push for that spot. Now, coming from that, our number 2, Jade Cargill. A couple times on this, I've mentioned AEW women's wrestlers and how they've badly pushed them. To me, what they've done with Jade Cargill has been absolutely perfect. The way they brought her along, the way they featured her, the way they've made her matches feel important. This is what Goldberg should have been. You didn't need to inflate the record. As we see, Jade's at like 40-0 at the time of this recording. I don't even know what the number is. But the fact that we got to see all of her wins, and we got to see her, it didn't go up from 100 to 112 in a week. You didn't have to inflate Goldberg's record. And not inflating Jade Cargill's record allows us as fans to go along with the entire ride. And because we've been able to go along with the ride, we're seeing a woman who's not only developing right in front of our faces, we're also seeing a woman who's trying to cement herself, much like I said with Becky Lynch, as one of the great women in all of the world. And I think she's really up there. I enjoy everything she does. Her promos are fantastic. Her aura is immaculate. She is absolutely a star, and I really love everything they've done with her. This is one of the people they've got right more often than not. And for that reason, Jade Cargill is our number 2. Now, before we get into our number 1, we do a thing here called the best of the rest, basically women that were thought of for the list but didn't quite make it. First up, Mickie James. Mickie has had a fantastic career, and I know I've said this already like 4 times on this top 10. Mickie cemented herself as one of the greatest women of all time already, and it really blew my mind. In a year that Mickie James shows up on WWE television as the Impact Champion, we barely even talk about that now. That's how crazy this year has been in wrestling. What an amazing spot for her. And we're talking about a woman that's 20 years into her career and should be at the tail end of it. And she's still going out there and still going out with a new generation of women like Jordynne Grace, like Deonna Purrazzo, that are challenging her and keeping her at that spot. It's almost like Ric Flair in times, or Edge, or any longtime male wrestler. We've never really seen this on the women's side of wrestling. We've never had a woman that's been at a high level for as long as Mickie James has consistently. And that's so impressive to me. That's so amazing that she keeps going at the route she is, and that she could be talked about as one of the best women in the world on these lists 20 years into her career. Now, next up on our best of the rest, Liv Morgan. Much like I mentioned with Jamie Hayter figure Liv is the WWE equivalent. She's a woman that the fans got behind, and WWE almost had to push because she was creating such a groundswell on her own that there was no way that you could have got around what she was doing and how she was breaking out. She really made herself into a bigger star this year than she's ever been, and then once she did, she was rewarded for doing so, which is the way it should be. That's the way wrestling should be. If you make yourself a huge star, you should be rewarded. You should be given an opportunity. Now, if you fall on your face, that's on you. But if you could get there, let's give them the ball. Let's see what they can do. I really want to see them focus and come back around to her and give her a little bit of a better championship run, in my opinion, so we could see what she can really do as a world champion and not being someone that wins by luck, in my opinion. But anyway, she was one of the better women wrestlers in the world for this year, so that's got to say something for her. Now, before we get into our number one, if you think I put someone too high, someone too low, left someone off the list, let me know down here in the comments. And while you're there, smash that like button, subscribe, share the video. Finally, our number one female wrestler of the year, Bianca Belair. You had to know when you didn't hear her name on the rest of the top 10 that she was going to be here. I mean, Bianca, to me, is head and shoulders above all of the rest of the women on this list. And this isn't a knock to any of the other women on the list. Bianca has the likability, the ring talent, the promo ability, the natural charisma, the athleticism. She has an athleticism that is off the charts. There's very few wrestlers in the world, male or female, that can match her athleticism. There's very few wrestlers in the world that can match her connection with the fans. She smiles and a whole crowd of 40,000 people are behind her. She grimaces, and that same crowd hurts with her. Seeing what Bianca started as, seeing her come up through the ranks of NXT to where she is now, it's been an amazing journey to go on, and it's been really fun watching it, and I love the journey. I love seeing this. I love seeing someone break out and someone go to the heights that no one may not have expected her to. I mean, who would have really thought when Bianca started in NXT that she would have been the top woman in WWE at some time? I mean, I'm sure there's some people that did, but I wasn't one of them. I'll be honest with you. I didn't see this happening for her, and it's awesome that she continued to get better and better. She continued to improve not only in the ring but outside of the ring. She just recently went into a bodybuilding competition, and I don't know who would have beat her because look at her. She looks like a statue. Everything about Bianca is everything you would want with your ace of the company, man, woman, or otherwise. This is a woman you could put, much like I said with Becky Lynch, you could put her on the talk shows, you could put her in the special appearances. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see Bianca Belair in a Marvel movie somewhere down the line because she looks like a damn superhero in her wrestling gear. I could see it easily. She is so fantastic, and there's so many adjectives that you could say, and I'd probably be rambling on for another 30 minutes if I continued to talk about that. But you guys know, if you're watching this video, you've seen it. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You're connected to her, whether she's your favorite or not. You're always interested in what she's doing, and that's what makes her so special. She has that connection that very few people can get, and it's not something that you can teach. It's something that you're born with, and she has that. And then on top of that, she strives to be the best in the world, which is where she ends up being, which is absolutely amazing in my opinion. But the proof is in the pudding. Everybody sees it. Everybody knows it. That's why she's my number one. Again, if you think I left someone off the list, put someone too high, someone too low, let me know down here in the comments. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video, let me know who your top female wrestler in 2022 is. It doesn't have to be anyone on this list. It could be someone that I don't have. You could have put one of the Joshi women on here that I haven't had a chance to really watch this year, and maybe it's someone I'll go and pick up and look for. Anyway, again, let me know down here in the comments. With all that being said, my name is George Coles, and this has been another Heel Heat Top 10.